So up until today, my favorite Sony G Master lens was the 28-70 f2. They weren't the first to do it. Canon jumped on that board when it came to mirrorless, but I feel like the Sony G Master does it best. It's fairly lightweight, it's super sharp, wide open, and it replaces a bunch of prime lenses for you. But now look at this. I've got the Sony G Master 50-150 f2, and as far as I know, this is the first of its kind, this kind of formula coupled with that kind of maximum aperture. This promises to give us beautiful shallow depth of field. I think we might have a winner here, but I'm not sure yet. I definitely want to test it out. I'm Chris Nichols. This is PetaPixel. I'm going to find out. So obviously, as a camera reviewer, I get to test out a lot of high-end cameras. I mean, today it's the Sony, and that's why I want to keep things as simple as possible, and OWC lets me do that because they've got a really cool adapter. First off, I can just use the Atlas Pro CFexpress Type A cards. They're incredibly fast. They work directly in the Sony camera. So then I've got one-stop solution. I've got a Type A card here. I've got the A to B adapt because then I can just use this one OWC Compact Flash Type B reader. These are incredibly fast. I mean, the card, the adapter, and the reader will all support CFA 4.0 speeds. And I also like that I can use OWC's innergize software. This lets me update firmware. It lets me check the health of the card so I know that things are still reliable and that I can trust them, and I really appreciate that peace of mind. And you can see all the links in the description below so you can check out these great products for yourself. We love the OWC cards, not only because they're fast and reliable, but they just make life simpler. So handling on the 50-150 f2, this is a G Master, so it's exactly what you'd expect. We got the white paint job, we got 3 custom buttons here, autofocus, manual focus selector switch, dynamic manual focus, nice zoom ring, decent manual focus, although again, a little bit loosey-goosey, aperture ring, and I can set that to either have click stops or just be nice smooth turning. This is fully weather sealed, and I do like that we can also remove that tripod foot if we want to have things a little bit more compact. Unfortunately, no Arca Swiss cutouts on that tripod ring though. We even have an iris lock here, so if you want to put it to auto and lock it, you can manipulate everything from the camera. But what about the physical dimensions here? I mean, this isn't too heavy. So first off, this is about 1,340 grams, although that is without the tripod foot, but that doesn't add that much weight. Size-wise though, it's very reminiscent of the original 70-200 2.8 G Master. The second version is going to be lighter than this, but all 3 lenses are actually the exact same length. The hood here does cover a 95mm filter diameter. That's not something I would use very often, but even on a day where we've got sunlight coming through the clouds, shooting at f2, I can sometimes break that 8,000th of a second maximum shutter speed. So you at least have that option if you want to put ND filters on. This hood is actually very shallow. Look at that. There's not much to it, but it will protect it from some erroneous light from the side. And you do have the cutout here so you can turn polarizers. But in the end, from a walk around, you know, handling this lens on the body all day or shooting at a job site, like doing a wedding or something like that, it really does feel like a 70-200 2.8. It's not overly heavy. It's not overly large in the bag, although do keep in mind, it is only going to 150 millimeters. Unfortunately, however, there is a big downside to keeping this lens as compact as it is, and that is that they do not have an allowance at the back of the rear element here for teleconverters. That's something that the 70-200s have an advantage on. You can turn those into 400 millimeter equivalent lenses with a 2x converter. Unfortunately, on this lens, you're stuck with 50-150. Now, a lens like this is going to be used a lot for journalism and sports, so it's got to focus quick, but thankfully this has the exact same setup that you'll find on all the other professional 70-200 G Masters. We're getting 4 XD linear motors. They're very fast. They drive the elements quick. There's no delay. Things are accurate and silent, so I'm really liking the autofocus experience, and it's going to work fantastic for any sort of serious professional situations that you come across. Now, what about image stabilization? This lens does not have it, okay? That's something that 70-200 2.8 G Masters absolutely include. So I am relying here on the Sony A7R5's built-in IBIS to stabilize things. That is somewhat mitigated by the fact that we have that f2 aperture, so we can let more light in when we need it and get faster shutter speeds, but just keep that in mind. So I thought it was going to be a yucky, cloudy day today, but as you can see, the sun's actually breaking out really nicely, which is great because we always love to test flare on a lens like this. G Masters have always been doing really good. I mean, their coatings are fantastic, and as you can see here, we're not really having any issues with flare. Even in the darker shaded areas, shooting wide open, we're getting nice, clean contrast, no blown out, hazy areas. This lens is fantastic for shooting towards bright, blinding light sources like I'm looking into right now. So of course, a lens like this, being a telephoto range lens with an f2 maximum aperture, shallow depth of field is going to be one of the hallmarks of this optic. So we want to go to our favorite bokeh testing place, Leopold's Tavern, have a beer. I got some chicken fingers, always good. And this gives us a really nice opportunity to test those out of focus specular highlights. And as you can see at f2, beautiful bokeh, bit of a cat's eye effect, which I like. No onion rings to speak of, like no busyness inside the specular highlights, no soap bubble effect. Like this is clean stuff. Stopping down to f4, you can see things get a little bit more round. This has got an 11 bladed aperture, so it certainly keeps things nice and smooth in a circle, and again, clean bokeh. So the transitions from in focus to out of focus are gorgeous. This lens is absolutely made for shooting shallow depth of field. Now, a macro lens, this is not, all right? I mean, Sony's saying, okay, for weddings and stuff like that, you can get table centers and ring shots and stuff, but we're only getting 0.2 times magnification, 1:5 life-size reproduction. You basically get your best macro at the wide angle range, 50 millimeters, but I'm finding actually all throughout the range, it's roughly the same. So I'm actually preferring to shoot at the 150 millimeter range just to get that 0.74 meters of distance from the subject to the sensor. But again, I'm not getting stunningly good close-ups. I'm also shooting at f4 to do macro just because I find the sharpness up close at f2 leaves just a little bit to be desired. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is I'm going to have my eyes closed for most of this because I'm blinded right now. We got direct sunlight off the snow. I can barely see. Jordan's like a blurry, tear-filled mess up there. Thank you. Okay, but a lot of people are going to draw connections between this particular lens and the Tamron 50-150 f2 to 2.8 because they have similar ranges, you know, there's similar brightness. Obviously, this is giving us the f2 all the way through, but it's not giving us that 35 millimeter wide angle. Now, that being said, we love the Tamron 50-150, and it's way less money than this lens. So where are we justifying that extra cost? Well, the first thing I'm going to say is this. I think this would couple really nicely with something like a 16-35 G Master. With those two lenses, you'd have a whole range covered. And it's interesting as well, it kind of makes us think, Sony have released a version of the 16-35 as a cinema lens made for video work. Now, this is not specifically for video, but we're shooting this episode right before NAB, and I would not be surprised if Sony announces a version of this that's cinema specific. Here's why. You see, this lens isn't made specifically for video, but it's actually very well corrected for video. Of course, the manual focus, as I mentioned, is loosey-goosey, but at least it's linear, so we know where it's going to start and stop. That's predictable. And as well, this lens has basically zero focus breathing, as you can see here. Whether we're shooting at the 150 millimeter end or the 50 millimeter end, there's basically no focus breathing. I mean, on top of this, I could turn breathing compensation on, but honestly, I don't need it. So this would actually be a fantastic lens for telephoto video work, for doing focus pulls. It's very interesting that it does that, and if they make a cinema specific version, that would be even more exciting. Now, I don't normally talk about glass elements, how many there are in a lens and all that kind of stuff, but I am going to point out that the 50-150 has 9 advanced optical elements out of 19, and I only mention that because that's quite a high ratio as lenses go. And what Sony's actually saying with this 50-150 is they wanted to correct all the optical issues with the lens optically. They actually want to do it with lens design as opposed to what a lot of manufacturers do, including Sony, relying on digital corrections to correct a lot of things like chromatic aberration and distortion. This lens is correcting it all optically. And things like LoCA, for example, I thought was going to be an issue because we got a really bright telephoto with an f2 aperture, but even as you can see here, very good LoCA. We're not getting that color fringing in the foreground and background out of focus areas that's really hard to remove out in post. So it looks like whatever Sony's doing, they're correcting things very well straight out of the box. So let's talk about sharpness now on the 50-150 f2. I'm going to start at the 50 millimeter range this time. Looking at the center at f2, results are excellent. I mean, this is still very good detail, but there is just a tiny hint of softness, which, as you can see here, goes away when you then stop down the aperture to f4. Still, I would shoot at 50 millimeter wide open, no problems. Looking at the corners, it's a similar story. At f2, the corners have just a little bit of softness, and again, at f4, they're fantastic. But the lens does shoot very flat, which means that when the corners are in focus, the center's in focus as well. But now let's look at the 150 millimeter mark, because I think the lens actually does even better here. Center at f2, it's basically perfect. I mean, we're getting tons of detail. I don't even really see a difference in contrast going to f4. The corners have a little bit of softness at f2, which does get better at f4, but honestly, they're even better than the 50mm Mark. So this lens is designed to be incredibly sharp all throughout its range at pretty much any aperture you want. So I mean, look, it's actually really easy to review lenses like this when they're just so good optically. I can't think of many downsides on this thing. It's optimized for video, it's incredibly sharp, it's great wide open, it's gonna be fantastic for a lot of indoor action sports and wedding pursuits. You might even like it as just a walk around lens because of that normal to telephoto range. And this is also an awesome portrait lens. It does so much, but you sure are paying for it. I mean, this is a very expensive lens. I mean, look, the Tamron 50-150, it's a little bit lighter, it's way less money. It does give you a little bit extra wide angle range. You are, though, giving up a stop of light because at f2, that only really does it at the 35 to 40mm range. As you go up, it starts to slow down right away. So this lens has merit if you're looking for the creme de la creme in this range. It's very interesting that Sony decided to make it. I think for working professionals, this is gonna be an awesome lens. Just keep in mind the limitations that it has. I certainly wouldn't use it for wildlife unless you can get really close to birds like I'm able to do here. As expensive as this lens is, let's also consider though that it could replace quite a few prime lenses in the G and G Master lineup. I mean, if I was looking at getting an 85-1.8 and a 135-1.8, this is basically going to cover those. You know, even the 100mm soft focus lens, if you didn't need the soft focus, this is going to do a better job with a brighter aperture. So this does replace a lot of high-end portrait lenses, and it does deliver fantastic performance all the way through that range. So this is absolutely an exotic lens, but it's an interesting lens, and I think the use case is going to be fairly limited to just a certain amount of photographers, but hopefully this video decides if you are one of those photographers. Leave your comments below, let us know what you think. Definitely check out the podcast, it's on all your favorite podcasting apps, or you can watch it on the exact same channel, and I recommend that because we do ridiculous visual things on the podcast that you don't want to miss. Otherwise, do consider getting a PetaPixel.com membership. You get to enjoy PetaPixel.com ads-free. You get 25% discounts on our merch store with a lot of the stuff they're updating there. You also get access to our sample galleries where you can play with our JPEGs and RAW files from the lenses and cameras that we are able to review as full production. We appreciate you guys joining us. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.